Today's FAQs is magic, and specifically mental magic, and in fact mentalism, which is a term that could be misconstrued and misunderstood, but this is basically performing magic tricks but through the mind, and it's my favorite kind of magic. And I grew up watching the Paul Daniels show, and he was a fantastic talent, but some of my favorite contributors to that show were the ones who could do stuff with their minds. And of course we've seen Darren Brown, David Blaine and others. Well, we have the next new kid on the block. Kid literally, actually, 19 years of age, but already highly experienced and accomplished. Anna Ferris Simpson is one of the youngest female mentalist magicians to come out of the UK. Her style of mentalism is very different. Her performances involve hanging upside down above people's heads to read their mind, demonstrating superhuman abilities from inside a glass tank surrounded by 250 gallons of water, and receiving telepathic thoughts whilst bungee jumping. Anna is with me in the studio, as is her mentor, Martin T. Hart. Guys, welcome to Talk Radio.
Hiya, thanks for having us.
It's lovely to have you. Anna.
Yes.
What kind of unusual childhood did you have that led to this career?
Oh, well, unusual perhaps. I was always just a bit of a idiosyncratic kid. I learned idiosyncratic because you have to put a word on it.
Yes.
Like, you had enough of
You
weird...
need a label.
Exactly. Like, labels are where it's at. I mean, actually, no. But, yeah, it was great, really.
And actually, idiosyncratic is more neutral. In fact, it's quite positive. I think we all like to think we're a bit idiosyncratic. Quirky.
Yeah, definitely.
A one-off.
Yeah, unique.
Unique. That's what that can be used as an example of damning with faint praise. That was I get that sometimes when I do shows. That was a unique show, Mark. Well done. So, what age did you engage with the idea of either mental trickery or even just card tricks and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a silver lining to a cloud, really, because when I was born with a hip disorder, and so it meant that for the first year of my life, I was literally in a cast from my chest all the way down to my feet. Right. And so it meant that while everyone around me the kids around me presumably were learning to crawl, I was just sat there. And so instead of developing more physically, I did it mentally. Yeah. And so kind of my mind was the first thing to develop. And that led to me learning to squeak a toy instead of cry to call my parents. And it just kind of developed further and further in school.
And did you come out of that cast after after your first birthday?
Yeah, it was, I think it might have been just before, and my birthday was kind of a celebration of me coming out of it. But I was literally just like a lump on the sofa for the first years.
Yeah, so. And then of course you would have had the habit of being quite static. So when you were sort of 2 and 3, were you quite sort of rigid child?
It was always funny. My mum used to say how as soon as I had the cast off, I'd be crying. I felt so bare. She'd have to put 5 leggings on me.
Oh, yes.
But I think it was more of a shock to my mum because she'd leave me alone and suddenly I'd rolled off the bed. She wasn't used to having a child that moved, so... Well,
I'm pleased to say you're fully recovered and wearing just one pair of trousers today.
I know, I did it just for you.
You've clearly made progress. That's an amazing backstory.
Yeah.
And then, as you got older as a child, were you introduced to magic? Did you see it on TV or did you know a magician?
It was more so, I wasn't introduced to magic fully until I got a lot older. But when I was about 3, my dad would always... I used to suck my thumb a lot. Yeah. I wasn't a dummy sucker, I was a thumb sucker. And my dad used to hide my little ribbon that I used in what I now know, everybody, was a fake thumb. But when I was younger, I was like, this is incredible. Yes. And so even from a very young age, I had that whole awe and wonder at it. And as I got older, and now when I turned 18 and everything, I was really looking for something, because everyone has, I want to be this when I'm older, I want to do this. And I just wanted something to really, get a passion for. Yeah. And it just rekindled this love I had that from when I was younger and magic shows in year 6 to now where I am today, same with you, which is awesome.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. And some people think of magicians as quite solo individuals, maybe loners even. Could that be said of you?
I think not really. I've always been I call myself a introverted extrovert. And I feel like I've always been a bit idiosyncratic, and I've always been alone sometimes, and I often prefer the company of animals. My friends always joke around how I'm with my dogs more than them. Right. And it's probably true. But yeah, I love being around people, but I also love being on my own, and I'm off in my thoughts all the time. I have to be constantly brought back down to earth, a hey Anna.
Were you an only child?
I'm an only child, yeah.
Because I think that also is a wonderful gift in many ways, because what happens is that, mum and dad are at times quite busy. I'm sure they did their best, but a lot of the time you've got to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe even invent characters around you to keep you entertained.
Yeah, actually, that's quite a funny story, because when I was in nursery, because I basically was only around adults up until the age of about 4, and at nursery I had an imaginary friend called Alice. And so my mum would be like, how was nursery, when she picked me up, and I'd go on all these adventures with Alice, until one day I was the only child. I killed off my imaginary friend.
Oh,
I came
really?
home and my mum was like, how's Alice? And I was like, she's dead.
Blimey. Not even,
Yeah.
it's not like she's moved to another town.
She's not moved to...
She's no longer with us.
No, she's not moved to Bristol. She's dead.
What do you think precipitated her demise?
I don't know.
You were ready to move on?
Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of the stage as well. My life has always gone in like these little stages. And even at a young age, I was like, I'm ready to move on to my next chapter.
Well, I've got a big story for you.
Yes.
A little bit like the 80s show Surprise, Surprise.
Okay.
I can tell you she's not dead, and she's here today. And she'll be...
Alice!
She'll be joining us in the studio after the break,
Oh my
where
gosh.
you've got some making up to do.
I bet she hasn't aged a day.
No, she looks just as good as you. With you, next to you, and also with you creatively, is your mentor, Martin T. Hart. Martin, welcome to Talk Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Now we've got to delve into your unusual, idiosyncratic childhood.
Oh, right. Well, what can I say? My childhood was nothing to do with magic. Nothing to do with mentalism. Absolutely
Really?
Nothing to do with anything. The only thing I was good at school was English.
Right.
That was my subject. And photography. So...
Two very laudable subjects.
Yeah.
But not the super sort of nerdy ones, not like maths.
Unlike me, I was maths all the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, full on nerd.
I found everything else a bit boring. But...
So therefore, you didn't really indulge in a lot of magic as a child. Is that right, Martin?
No, there was no magic in my life as a child
see.
at all. I did grow up watching the Paul Daniels Magic Show, and I really did enjoy it.
What was good about that show is you didn't have to like magic. He was basically a very good broadcaster, a great entertainer, wasn't he? And therefore, he somehow made magic accessible to the masses, including me.
Paul Daniels was a man who believed in presentation. It was more important than the method or the trick itself. Although all the tricks were good, it was about the presentation. And afterwards, when he retired, he made YouTube vlogs talking about presentation, and he could present the silliest trick, the smallest
Or the most
thing,
basic, yeah.
and it was the most amazing thing to watch
Made shopping less glamorous.
purely because of his presentation.
That's right, and I think because he was a magician, but also a broadcaster and an entertainer, and if he was doing a simple card trick, and I remember occasionally in those shows, a lot of it was really elaborate, and there's like fire eaters and acrobats and God knows what else, but then there'd just be a very quiet, intimate card trick that he'd do on his own, 10 minutes of telly, God knows how many millions of viewers, just the kind of stuff Simon Cowell could only dream of. So you watched that show as a child, and then how did you actually get into the magic business?
It was a little bit accidental, really, because when I left school, I went into broadcast journalism myself, but it sort of in the background. So I was in newsrooms, BBC Radio,
Right.
And some independent radio stations. And I was lucky because I came up with an idea for a radio show which I presented called The People Show, and it involved lots and lots of celebrities coming on board and just having fun.
Yeah.
And Paul Daniels was one of those celebrities. So I would go to his home and we would record stuff together, and we got together and wrote a book as well called Today's Con Games, which are no longer Today's Con Games because that was then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yesterday's Con Games. So after Paul appeared on my radio show, my dad made a comment. He said, my dad worked with a famous magician once. This is my granddad. And I thought, really? Wow. So that was very intriguing to me.
And somehow a parallel given your new friendship with Paul Daniels.
Yes. And it was strange because over the next 13 years, and that's how long it took, I investigated that claim that my granddad had worked with a famous magician. Well, the famous magician was a duo called the Piddingtons. They were a husband and wife telepathy act, and they baffled the nation, because in them days, 1949, there was mainly radio, not so much television. So millions of people listened to them broadcast on the radio. And what they did was they did thought transference. So one half of the duo, Sidney Piddington, would be in the BBC studios, whilst Leslie, his wife, would be in a Stratocruiser aeroplane above Bristol.
By the way, this was all done on trust, right? I mean, because this to me has echoes of ventriloquism on the radio.
Yeah. Well, they would invite famous film stars to be the eyes.
I see.
For the listening audience, and you can still hear these broadcasts today.
And I guess you would have heard some plane noise as well.
Yeah, and
if they're at 38,000 feet,
just a touch.
Yeah, I mean they did everything to make it fair. To make it obvious
and above board.
They weren't, cheating.
So they were the real deal. It wasn't charlatanism here.
No, they were the real deal. The thing was, they didn't use codes, speaking codes or anything like that. And in 1949, there certainly wasn't Bluetooth earpieces or any sort of anything you could hide. Like that. So it was baffling to the public as to how they were achieving this. And for some strange reason, it wouldn't happen now, but the science community believed that it was possible that they were literally telepathic. It was real. And they offered to test them. Of course, they denied all offers of being tested. And they never admitted and never claimed that they were telepathic. They would only say, after every broadcast, you be the judge. You are the judge.
And that's what we love, isn't it? Just like the whole idea of people not knowing and the wonder and the awe and the questioning. And to be honest, that's why I'm so passionate about this, is I want to recreate in every single person I see that awe I had as a 3-year-old as my dad hid my ribbon. And like, we just want to do groundbreaking things that, as you were saying, like making mentalism more accessible. Like people, when they hear mentalism, I for one was a bit like, oh God, what do they know about me?
Would we put the likes of Darren Brown and David Blaine into that category?
Yeah.
And it's when you feel that you're in the presence of someone that has an almost supernatural power, but as it's magic, it's always a trick. Is it always a trick, or or are you slightly psychic?
No, I think it's not always a trick. I feel like what we do is people like Darren Brown and stuff, we tap into abilities we have and we magnify these to make it entertainment. And I think it's one of those things that no matter what you see, like the Piddington said, like it's up to you to judge what you believe. And our thing is all about making the seemingly impossible possible. And nowadays, instead of being on a plane, I would jump out the plane and read minds. I'm all about like doing just amazing things that will capture audiences.
But is it always a trick, no matter how clever and supernatural it might look? Is there always an underpinning of trickery going on?
There never are any claims. Darren Brown would never claim to have any paranormal ability.
Yeah.
And that's true. He hasn't got any paranormal ability, so it is trickery, but it's entertainment.
And in such a way that art itself is the magic of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's important to know that, because with the history of magic in London, there was a time where magicians cashed in on bereavement. They would claim that they could
reconnect with Auntie Anne.
Yeah,
they
for
could speak.
£50.
They could speak to the dead. There was they could literally summon them into the room, and levitate, and a lot of paranormal stuff which they claimed to be real. And there was a couple of magicians that came along, Masculine and Cook they were called, and they decided to open the Museum of Curiosities in Piccadilly, where people could come along and they could see demonstrations of people talking to the dead and levitating and all these things. But the clause was that they told their audiences, this is a trick. This isn't real. It's a trick. But it's a good one, isn't it? And they were keen and determined that these charlatans couldn't continue to do what they were doing, and that was really con the public into believing these things and parting with their hard-earned money.
Well, I know you're going to have a long and successful career, beguiling us with your trickery, which there's a sweet spot between it being a trick and us knowing it's a trick. but still not being able to explain it, and therefore it does feel slightly supernatural.
Yeah.
And that's the space you want to inhabit.
And that's the moment of wonder I want to walk along.
It's all part of showbiz, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I do stand-up comedy, and that is a complete con trick, right? Because what you have is somebody in a microphone, sorry, not in a microphone, that would be a trick in itself. Somebody with a microphone pretending like they know exactly what they're doing, super confident. Here's just some funny stuff I thought of. It's like, no, it's all an artifice. It's all a construct. And you're tricking the audience into thinking you know what you're doing. And ask any comedian 3 minutes before they go on, they're absolutely pacing backstage, nervous, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's one of those things that no matter what, throughout everyone's life, they're going to put on a mask and they're going to perform some sort of trickery. And it's about using that to harness for the wonder and the awe.
But what I have is some half-baked gags about Brexit, whereas you and married life, but you on the other hand have an incredible skill, this very, very well constructed series of tricks. In the short time we have, is there anything you'd like to do in the studio?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. There's one that we've been working on developing, which we'd love to show with you.
I think we can demonstrate one of your hypersensitive sensitivity.
Just today, just for you and everyone listening.
It might be over-revealing and quite embarrassing for me.
We'll keep it very PG.
I might reveal too much. It could enter the occult. You never know. But brilliant. Well, the short, is it something we can do over quite a short period of time?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
a couple of minutes.
Oh, brilliant.
So over on radio, you know, keep us honest. So.
Definitely. I will make sure I won't have any skullduggery here.
I've just got a deck of cards here. We don't usually do cards, but, you know, we're just...
For the purposes of today.
For the purposes of quickness, we'll do cards.
Well, you have a set of cards there. They look like conventional playing cards. There's no jiggery-pokery at the moment.
So I'm going to get you to pick one.
Okay, I will pick a card. Shall I tell you what it is or not?
No. Put it under the desk.
Under the desk? Am I allowed to look at it?
Of course.
Bear with me for a second. I'm very bad at remembering, though.
Oh, God, me too. Easy doing it.
That's good. I gotcha.
Okay, now, are your hands clean?
They are.
All right, so what I want you to do under the desk is rub your hands all over that card. Try not to bend it, crease it, or anything like that.
No.
But just rub your hands all over
under the desk,
all over the cards. Okay,
gotcha.
So that card is in your possession. I'm going to give you the deck back, actually. Can you, under the desk as well, put the card back in the deck?
Okay, and can I put it wherever I like?
Yeah, you can look at the deck even.
Shuffle it all up.
That's very good.
You know, so everything's happened in your hands, your own hands.
I just want you all to know I'm now sweating. My heart is racing.
We didn't say it would be easy.
So everything's happened in your hands. Now, to a magician, this is a
Wait a minute, I'm hearing my Auntie Betty. We lost her 3 decades ago.
That's her cat.
She's levitating.
How does she do it?
To a magician, this is a no-go area because, you know, just giving the spectator the cards and hoping everything's going to work.
Well, no, it is exactly right. So I have now shuffled.
Yeah. All right. So Anna has, how can we describe it? A very canine sense of smell, should we say?
Yeah, which is unfortunate when you do live with canines, as everything they do is magnified.
Yeah.
So let's just say, well, I have very heightened senses, as we kind of learned from when, like, my mind developed a lot faster than the rest of me. And this has led to me having heightened senses such as my sense of smell. And I soon kind of learn, while other people couldn't smell things, and I was like, that reeks. They couldn't smell anything. And so it got me to thinking, how strong is this heightened sense of smell? And so
your hands have been all over that card.
Yes, they
it's
have.
Now
yeah.
in
Sorry
that
about
deck.
That.
So
I
think if you smell his hands,
I had a full English at the Talk Radio canteen, so there's probably a little bit of pork fat on there.
Oof.
And a bit of scrambled egg.
As a vegan, I'm cringing inside.
I apologise.
Now, what I'll have to do is I'm going to have to smell your hands. A bit weird.
No, this takes me back to my college years, actually.
Okay. Definitely did wash his hands, people. I can attest to that. Okay, now, you particularly put your hands on one card in this deck, and the rest of them, they kind of touched it, but not really.
Yes.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fan out this deck, and I'm going to sniff throughout it. And the card you handled is going to smell stronger of you than any other card in it. That's the aim, anyway.
Good to know. I wish I'd used one of those hand sanitizers. You know, that gel stuff they have in the hospital. She's now sniffing the deck. Welcome to some very surreal radio. Yeah. It's never boring here at Talk Radio.
Bessie's watching in the wings.
She is. And Alison.
Yeah, I can definitely... Ooh.
So what's happening is that my guest here, Anna Ferris Simpson, is carefully. There's no rush. Take it. In some ways, with magic, the longer you wait, the better. Anna Ferris Simpson, by the way, a great star.
You went somewhere in the middle, definitely.
And I can tell you, while we're doing that, you see, I love to multitask. Anna is performing, am I right, Martin, around the country?
Well, yes, she's actually going to be performing in America next, and then back to England and to open the first London Magic walking tour. So,
because there is a great history of there's a great history of there's a great history of walking in London. There's a great history of magic in London, isn't there?
And okay, this one, it was definitely around the middle of the deck, and this one is the card that smells most of you. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the table.
All right.
And I'd like you to say the card that you had as you turn it over.
Okay, I always mix these two up. It is the 8 of... Wait a minute, this is quite... let me just double check. I always get the clubs and the spades mixed up, so I'm just going to quickly... Yeah. It was... Can I reveal now?
You can.
The 8 of spades. And you've done it. She's done it. I don't know what's going on. All I can tell you is that she smelt all of the cards, and this one smelt most strongly of my News UK scrambled eggs. And I've got to say that you're A, a genius, and B, 500 years ago, you literally would have been burned at the stake. And
it's an honour to know that.
I'd have lit the fire myself, because I would have been so terrified at your supernatural powers.
Thank you.
That was brilliant and seamless. And clearly in Martin, you have a fabulous mentor. A long, successful career in magic lies ahead. So get the plug in. How can people, I mean, you're going to America, but how can people get a piece of the action and tap into your great performances?
Well, it's very exciting. We're kind of starting to kick off 2020 with amazingness. So as you said, in a couple of months, we're going off to America to do some really exciting shows. And hopefully we'll come back to see you again and tell you more about it.
Well, come and tell us. You have been extremely entertaining. What's the website or the Twitter, that kind of thing?
The website is...
Let's do the ugly promotional bit now.
Let's plug ourselves wonderfully. The website is thelondonmentalist.com.
Brilliant.
Well, londonmentalist.com, or you can Google my name.
If you Google London Mentalist, that term is to do with mental magic, and it's not the definitely.
You can Google my name, Anna Ferris Simpson, and it will come up with the site. And we're starting up a walking tour, as Martin mentioned before. London does have a really rich history of magic, and so we thought, why not put that into a tour? So we're starting off a walking tour, which is around May, and you can find tickets on londonmentalist.com.
And you can YouTube the Piddingtons and hear their amazing broadcasts.
Wonderful. There's an awful lot of reading material for all of you guys, some great YouTube footage, londonmentalist.com. All I can say is thank you, A, for a fabulous trick, B, your company, your amazing backstories, both of you. And come back and see us soon.
Definitely.
Anna Ferris Simpson and Martin T. Hart. That was spectacular. Maybe your next trick could be a Brexit deal with the EU. Who knew?
Talk Radio.